All right, let's jump right into this explainer. You've probably noticed it. How did this one specific physical silhouette just take over as the internet's default beauty standard? It's literally everywhere you look. But breaking down the actual anatomy of this trend, well, it tells us a ton about our digital culture right now.
So, how exactly did a single silhouette take over the internet? It's a fascinating question, right? Because we're looking at how a specific body type went from being, just a passing trend into something that feels almost mandatory across all of our feeds. And it definitely didn't happen overnight. Figuring out the why here gives us a really unique window into modern beauty expectations. Our source material from the Glow Truth has this incredible quote. It says, "The silhouette arrived before the conversation did." I mean, that just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures how this aesthetic had a name, a hashtag, and this massive cultural gravitational pull way before we even fully realized what we were looking at. It didn't ask for permission, it just kind of arrived on our screens and took over.
Part 1. Rise of the curve. So let's look at the algorithm's role in all of this, and why the digital ecosystem was absolutely primed to reward this specific look. Here's the thing. The algorithm was never neutral. It's fundamentally built to reward contrast, to reward visual tension. So when you have a snatched waist positioned right up against a dramatically rounded hip, it creates the exact kind of striking visual composition that naturally stops your thumb mid-scroll, honestly, way before your brain even catches up to what you're seeing.
Section 2, the cultural roots. To really understand this as a global phenomenon, we've got to trace its origins all the way back to Brazil. Now, a lot of us are used to standard European beauty tropes, but as our sources outline, the traditional Brazilian preference has historically celebrated a wider, thicker, and much shapelier ideal. In fact, the term bum bum isn't just everyday slang over there. It represents a deeply central element of physical beauty in Brazilian culture, something that's been passionately celebrated in poetry and music throughout the entire 20th century. To really put that into perspective, just look at this staggering number from 2014. 50,000. That's how many buttock implant procedures were performed in Brazil in a single year. To compare, the US only had about 19,000 in that same time frame. It really goes to show just how culturally entrenched this standard was, long before global social media ever caught on to the trend. In this intense cultural appreciation, it even manifested in a nationally broadcast pageant called Miss Bum Bum. Yep, an actual full-scale pageant with 27 contestants, one representing every single Brazilian state, and they were judged entirely on this one physical feature. It's wild, but it proves that this aesthetic was already the ultimate form of social currency way before it became a trending hashtag online. Part 3, the surgical reality. Let's shift gears and look at the actual clinical mechanics of recreating this exact look in an operating room. So the process involves an autologous fat transfer, which, simply put, is just moving fat from one part of your body to another. The technique itself was famously named lipoinjection by Dr. Eduardo Kruig back in 1987, though it was pioneered even earlier by Brazilian surgeon Ivo Patangi. Basically, it involves 3 steps: harvesting excess fat from the abdomen or thighs via liposuction, processing that tissue, and then injecting it directly into the gluteal region. Section 4, the algorithm's illusion. Because surgery definitely isn't the only mechanic at play here, let's examine what's really happening on our feeds. This is where things get tricky, because there's this quiet, ongoing negotiation online between what was built in a gym, what was bought in a clinic, and what's just a trick of the light. The feed aggressively rewards the final snatched silhouette, but it completely hides everything else: genetics, surgery, shapewear, posing angles, or heavy editing. It highly rewards the end result, but almost never discloses the method used to achieve it. And for those who are skipping the operating room entirely, there is a seriously effective, non-surgical toolkit being used every single day to create this exact visual illusion. We're talking high-rise denim and ribbed knits, specific shapewear, and heavily engineered posing, like shifting your weight back on a 3/4 turn. Even subtle things, like dropping the camera lens just slightly below eye level or placing bronzer on the outer hip for that dramatic shadow contrast. It's all highly calculated. Part 5, the comparison trap. Let's talk about the profound psychological and physical impact this standard has on all of us simply consuming it on our screens. Think about it. When a specific body type literally becomes tradable capital in our attention economy, when it actually yields likes, followers, and lucrative brand partnerships, it creates this incredibly intense pressure. It's an unfair comparison for anyone who's measuring their unfiltered everyday reality against someone else's heavily constructed presentation. Now, for those who do choose the surgical route, we have to look impartially at the clinical realities documented in regional reports, because severe complications are very real. Looking at these specific data sets covering reported liposuction and lipoinjection deaths from Mexico and Colombia, a significant percentage actually occurred either during the surgery itself or within the first 24 hours post-op. This really highlights some life-threatening risks, like thromboembolism, which is a dangerous blood clot. It's serious stuff. Section 6, Reclaiming the Real Glow. So, how on earth do we navigate this digital pressure cooker and find a resolution that actually works for us? Well, this brings us to a growing counter-movement called body neutrality. And this concept is fascinating, honestly. It doesn't force you to blindly celebrate your body every single day, because let's be real, that's exhausting. Instead, it just gives you permission to step out of the aesthetic competition altogether. It's fundamentally about de-emphasizing appearance as a measure of your worth and letting your body simply exist without making it this relentless project. So it essentially boils down to two very distinct mindsets. On one side, BBL energy says, I want this aesthetic and I'm going after it. On the other side, body neutrality says, I'm removing myself from the competition entirely. And our source material makes a really vital point here. Both of these paths are perfectly valid acts of self-determination. The catch? You have to be the one consciously making the choice rather than just bowing to some algorithmic expectation. Because at the end of the day, true confidence exists in that quiet moment before you check the camera angle, before you apply a filter, before the feed ever gets involved. As the quote goes, the real glow has always been the one you carry before the feed gets involved. It's the glow you carry inherently. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to consider the next time you catch yourself endlessly scrolling through your feed. Are you choosing your aesthetic, or is the algorithm quietly choosing it for you? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep critically questioning the digital world around you.